Seeing Manchester United act decisively is weird. It doesn't happen. Certainly not in the modern era. So to hear this latest article from James Ducker from the Telegraph confirming that Man United intend to appoint a director of football in the next couple of weeks, and then to move on to a purge of the recruitment structure, and then maybe to move on to a conversation around Erik ten Hag's future when Omar Barada comes in. There is so much to discuss in this article. It's going to be jam-packed full of information to bring you bang up to date. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm looking forward to this one because I've been looking forward to these changes for so long. Can't really hide my excitement on it, really, because I just know that United aren't going to win anything until all this stuff is done. And the plans around a director of football as well as a recruitment purge. Literally music to my ears. I'm going to run through the article here and pick out the key points and have little discussions around them, all right? Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS hope to appoint a new director of football at Manchester United within the next few weeks, ahead of an anticipated purge of the club's existing recruitment operation. Sweet chin music. Sweet chin music. INEOS have whittled down the search for a new director of football to a couple of names. Now let's speak about them. Dan Ashworth, the first name on that list. Of course, you know what I've been reporting. I've done a deep dive on Dan Ashworth. I've also done a deep dive on Paul Mitchell. Interestingly enough, both names are mentioned here in the same sort of sentence. So not in the idea that Paul Mitchell could be a head of recruitment, but maybe that Dan Ashworth or Paul Mitchell as the sporting director. Because, of course, Paul Mitchell was more of a sporting director at Monaco in his last job. Prior to that, he's been working as head of recruitments, but he did kind of get promoted. So maybe he wouldn't want to work underneath Dan Ashworth, which is what some of you have already said, and I think that's been a fair comment. Other names on that list, Julian Ward, part of that very successful Liverpool team. And I know, don't go any. You look at what's dominated the Premier League in the last 10 years. You look at City and you look at Liverpool. You look at what they've done right and you look at the people responsible for it. That's how and why we've got Omar Barada in, and maybe why Julian Ward is on the list. And Dougie Freedman is a name that some United fans might turn their nose up at, but I think they've just, Crystal Palace has just agreed a deal to sign Adam Wharton from the Championship from Blackburn. Highly rated youngster. And Dougie Freedman, whether it's Mark, he's been involved in quite a few interesting signings at Palace that have all worked out. So certainly from a recruitment perspective, you can understand where he would come in. As a sporting director, maybe not so much. Andrea Berta, Cristiano Giantulli. Lee Congerton was the name I always forget from Atalanta. Ricky Massara, Paolo Maldini. I've already spoken about all these when I ran through sort of these are the people getting linked with the position of Manchester United sporting director. But still, for me, out of all of them, I still see Dan Ashworth top of that list. And maybe his name's just mentioned first there because, I don't know. Maybe that's just coincidence. I really do think he's the best choice, but we'll see what happens there. INEOS wanted Barada in place first so he could have some valuable input into the choice of director of football, given their strong belief that these two men and the manager, that the two men and the manager must share a vision and work as a coherent whole. And that really is correct. It will be Omar Barada at the top of the tree, just underneath Jean-Claude Blanc as director of CEO. Was it director of INEOS Sport? I think he's CEO, whatever. He'll be there. Dave Brailsford will be there as a processes man, both underneath Jim Ratcliffe. But in terms of the football operations, it will be Omar Barada at the top of that. So he has to make sure that whether it's Paul Mitchell, whether it's Dan Ashworth, whether it's Julian Ward, whether it's Dougie Freedman, that Omar Barada wants that man in place. Because there would be no point in Manchester United doing all this work. Omar, here you go. We're going to bring in Julian Ward as the sporting director. He goes, really? You didn't ask me about that. It's basically an appointment that Omar Barada's got to green light because they will be working closely together. So that makes, again, total sense. And it's just weird hearing and seeing United making and doing decisions that make total sense. We're just not used to it as United fans. Really, really not. More on this. Sources have indicated that Barada, who is formally set to start in the summer, and the incoming director of football will ultimately be the ones to determine the fate of Erik ten Hag. Brailsford and Blanc will be involved, but it's going to be down to Barada and our director of sport, and so it should. Again, from a footballing operations decisions, they should choose the man. If Barada is creating the vision and he's employing a sporting director to execute that vision, they have to both agree that the manager is the best person in place to instill that vision. And if that's not Erik ten Hag, after all that structure's in place, then I won't have any problems with him being replaced. The concept of just sacking him in November, when none of this was in place, was just massively reactionary. Was what you're hearing now. It's part of a wider plan. And if Ten Hag isn't part of that, then he isn't. And it'll be up to Ten Hag to prove himself over these next few months. It remains to be seen whether INEOS also look to bring in a performance director or make another senior appointment in recruitment. They talk about John Murtough, and they talk about his position, which I don't think should be in it. I don't think there are any sacred cows in this, one source said in the Telegraph article. Well, yeah, John Murtough is definitely not one of those. I personally would love to see Ashworth with Mitchell underneath. And if it's not Mitchell, I still think that a head of recruitment is required. I think Omar Barada is going to have such a massive job on his hands when it comes to the overall vision of Manchester United as CEO. And I think the sporting director is going to have such a huge job on his hands, making sure that everything's connected from our academy teams, with our women's teams, with the first team, and everything that goes on with controlling the sporting direction, that having a head of recruitment to just focus on transfers makes sense with the scale of Manchester United. Now, that's my opinion. I might be wrong on that one. Omar Barada might be like, no, we don't need that. We'll be able to handle that. Maybe, maybe not. But I don't think John Murtough should be involved in any way, shape, or form. Which is a real shame because I think he just got over-promoted. I think he actually did some good stuff with the academy, but that's all going to be forgotten about. Kind of rightly so. Ratcliffe is hoping for that approval to happen in the next fortnight. And this is an interesting thing here. So, by hopefully the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, we'll have Ratcliffe completely ratified. And that bit there, Brailsford's audit of United's football operations will not formally commence until Ratcliffe has the keys, effectively. Basically, behind the scenes, he's been doing this for a long time, preparing, doing all the groundwork. But to formally do it, to start sacking people, to start removing people from, and to start actually tearing up the old structure and putting the new structure in place, can't happen and won't happen until Ratcliffe gets the green light. And that could happen in 2 weeks. Hence why the conversations around the sporting director, I imagine, could be announced within a couple of weeks. This all feels like it's almost like it's, I don't know, it's like a plug in a dam. Like everything's just waiting for the green light on the Ratcliffe takeover. And then you get the sporting director announced. You get some other players, well, not players, maybe players too. Other people sacked from the structure. One source said here, it needs to happen quickly. It's so important for the project that we can't hang about, which again is, music to United fans' ears and something that's filling me with optimism about what's happening because we can't wait. It's the 30th of January. If Barada and whoever else comes in are to have enough time, everything kind of needs to be in place at some point in March to give them, at the very least, like 6 to 8 weeks to work on things, to then think about the players that need to be going for. There's so much that needs to be done, and time is against us because of how long this takeover actually took. INEOS feel the improvement at Nice has been driven in large part by the success of the triumvirate now leading the club. Now, the reason I pulled that little comment up there is because that there directly links to a big video we've got coming up, another deep dive, where we explore exactly that. It's funny it's written there. We're going to take a look at what INEOS have done at Nice and what caused this turnaround, because there has been a turnaround there, whether you want to admit it or not. I think they're still second in Ligue 1. They made lots of mistakes at the start, but they've got a lot of things right since Brailsford's audit, which is going to start formally at Manchester United once Ratcliffe gets the green light. But confirmation here from the Telegraph that we could be getting... It could be the case, right, that by the time Jim Ratcliffe's 25% takeover is completed and he's got the keys, that we might already know who our CEO is, and we may well know who our director of football is. The two key positions that we've wanted for years may well be officially announced before he's even taken over. I actually think it will probably be around about the same time, but if the Telegraph is indeed correct, it's going to be done in the next couple of weeks. And then on top of that, A purge of the recruitment operation? Yes, please. This is the start, ladies and gents. You are witnessing the foundations for a new look Manchester United being built. We're ripping out the old plasterboard. We're getting rid of the nails. We're filling in all the holes. And we're going to start building on top of that. It is exciting. And if that happens in the next couple of weeks, recruitment next. Then win all the pots. Easy.